Hi everyone, welcome back to Little Shop of Nerds. I'm Julia.
Mike, last week we talked about we had a little bit of our dumb moments. Now since we have to do something since this week, we're going to do something a little classic and get back to normal.
Yeah, so last week's hint was too many notes.
Today we're going to be talking about the 1980s movie Amadeus, the movie about Wolfgang Mozart. And before we get into it, this movie is pretty much like the Assassin's Creed games, pretty much.
It is loosely based off of Wolfgang or Mozart's life.
And if you're going to complain how inaccurate it is, it's pretty much like you're going to play the freaking Assassin's Creed game. Most of it's inaccurate. You think everything's going to be accurate in a historical movie?
Well, I mean, if you're doing it about a historical figure, the best you could do is at least try to make it historically accurate.
Okay, look at the freaking biopics on freaking authors and musicians. Half of it is embellished. They're mostly focused on their drug problems than their actual life.
That is if they have drug problems. But most of the time they do have drug problems.
So
that's not actually fiction because they actually do have drug problems. So, anyways, this is loosely based off of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's life. And it starts off with these two men trying to get into this room of somebody. And they do manage to break in, and they see that the guy had slit his throat and blood everywhere. They take him to, I think, a mental institution.
Pretty much. That's pretty much where you see
And let me tell you, that was a madhouse. Like, I'm not even lying when I say that.
I think I saw a couple dicks flying out.
I definitely saw a dick. This movie, okay, so the insane asylums from that time were a lot worse than they are now. Or the psych wards are now. Because they basically just let them run loose inside.
Yep.
And
pretty much, like I said, it opens on someone trying to unalive someone. Someone was trying to unalive themselves. They brought in a priest, which that's during the time they did. Now they have doctors and ask. He sits down. He says. The guy's like the musician tells him to go. And he's like, if you have problems, tell me. And he's like. Then he asks, like, how familiar are you into music? He's like, I studied a little. So he plays some music that this person wrote. And he's like, do you know any of my work? He's like, I'm sorry, I don't. But he plays something by Mozart. And he's like, oh, that's charming. I didn't know you wrote that. And he's like, I didn't. This guy who...
Sorry about that, guys.
Okay, this guy who's trying to unalive himself, he was Antonio Sarieti. And he was a famous composer during the time, and guess knowing Mozart. And he tells the story how he pretty much meets Mozart.
Yeah, so it starts off with him telling about how he how he prayed to God to give him the give him the ability to write good music that people would like or whatever. So he's like, I gave up women, I never touched a woman, and he did like all this other stuff.
Pretty much what a Catholic priest would do, and you can tell all of the Catholicism in like all the signs of Catholicism, Christianity, and also.
Well, I mean, back in that time, that was a popular thing.
And yes, it was the popular thing, but still. Get right to it. He's talking about how Mozart was a kid. He was playing with popes, Rome, during the time. And Sarieti wanted to be a composer. He prayed to God. Then, I guess his father died because he didn't want him to be a composer. Then his father died. Then Sarieti's now a composer.
Yeah, he went to Vienna, and he started to become a composer. Worked his way up to be the court composer. And he was teaching the king how to play the piano. Um, so then he was at some sort of like party, and I think he heard that Mozart was going to be there because he starts looking for Mozart. Well, we see I've seen this movie before when I was still in high school.
Middle school.
I do believe it was middle school or high school when I first saw this. And if you guys went to a public school and they showed movies, violent movies, or sex scenes in movies or whatever, the teacher would always get up and hold a piece of white paper in front of the TV screen, so you wouldn't be able to see what was happening on the screen. So, I remember the part with the woman in the blue dress running away and Mozart running after her. Well, at the time, we don't know that it's Mozart. Well, Sarietti finds his way into the banquet room, and the woman in the blue dress goes in there. She's hiding. He's hiding. In comes this man. He finds her. And, okay, now this is where consent comes into play. Because she did ask him, or she did say multiple times, no. But he just kept trying to convince her. If you say no, if she says no, she means no. Don't push your fucking luck, guys, okay? Girls, don't do that to guys either, okay? So,
consent, y'all.
Yeah, consent goes both ways. Remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you're willing doesn't mean the other person's willing.
Meaning no means no. If a woman says it, that dudes, fuck off.
Yeah. And if a guy says it, women, fuck off.
Pretty much.
You know, or if you're into the opposite gender or whatever, let's just say when the other person says no, fuck off, okay?
Just go home and whack it. That's all you can do.
Yeah. Or find another willing partner.
That too.
Yeah. So, anyways, they start playing his music without him. He runs out. He gets dismissed from his role, or whatever. Like, I don't really know how to go about this movie because it's just.
It's so.
We watched the director's cut and it was 3 hours long.
Let's just say we're gonna.
I got bored.
I got a little bored too, but it's not a bad movie. But we're not going to talk the whole thing because we only have a certain amount of time. Let's just go with this. We just do a little here and there what we saw and what we liked and other stuff, and we get done.
Yeah. So I mean, it just goes on about Mozart's life, about what he does, like how he's composing his operas and how, his family doesn't have any money. And one of his pieces, one of his operas, he has this woman who she's like this. Think of Carlotta from Phantom of the Opera.
She always looked familiar to me.
Who?
The woman you're talking about. The Carlotta woman.
Well, I mean, it's not the same woman.
Okay.
What I'm saying is she's the diva of the soprano. The one that everybody wants to be the leading lady because she has the voice for it.
Yes.
So, I think her and Mozart had something going on. But I'm not either that or she wanted to have something go on. Sarietti was in love with her. He called it lust.
Lust, pretty much.
But Mozart was, he was, for some reason, my phone decided that it was going to turn on. Instead, so Sarietti wanted her, but I think she wanted Mozart, but Mozart was engaged to get married to somebody else.
Yes.
He didn't look too happy. Mozart did not look too happy that she was brought up because the girl's mother, which was his landlady, brought her to him.
Yes, and
he didn't look too happy. The woman definitely was, or the soprano definitely wasn't happy.
No.
So he ends up getting married to her, but Mozart's father, Leopold, was not
happy about
it. Like, that's, And he's 26 years old at this time. Mozart's 26. He should be able to make his own damn decisions. Okay?
Pretty much. But also there's some parts where Sarietti tries to have Mozart not to teach certain people because he gives a...
He is jealous.
He's jealous, but he tells, no, was it the emperor or whatever who it was, not to give him certain people teaching lessons because he thinks he's going to molest them, which was farther from the truth.
Yeah. So basically, what Sarietti does throughout the entire movie is try to sabotage Mozart's career.
Yeah, and he reads Mozart's work and he loves it, but he's just getting more jealous and doesn't like it. And later on, his Mozart's dad comes.
Well, no, before that, Mozart's wife, there was like a position that opened up. And Mozart's wife had gone to Sarietti with his music to try to get him that position. And he was like, well, I'm having dinner with the emperor tomorrow, or the king or whatever. He's like, I could persuade him to let your husband have this career. He goes, or this job. He goes, but you need to come back tonight. And she was like, what do you mean? He goes, he was basically coercing her to have sex with him in exchange for her husband getting this position.
But
so she does go back later on that night. And she does start stripping in front of him. We see boobies. And he basically said no.
But here's the thing.
But of course Mozart didn't get the position.
But here's the thing. If he wasn't going to sleep with her, what was the point? In my opinion. It's like, dude, if you just want to see tits, just go to a brothel.
Like, I'm wondering if maybe he wanted to see if she would do it. And I think at the time when he told her to come back, he did have intentions of sleeping with her. But at the last minute, he didn't.
I don't know. I just think it was just... I just think that whole scene was confusing and didn't explain a lot. I think if that was part of the deleted scene, that should have just remained on the cutting room floor.
So, the rest of the movie, Sarietti is just trying to sabotage. So then Mozart's dad does come to visit.
And he's pretty much being an ass. One tells him he needs to come back home. They go to a party. A nice masquerade party, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, pretty cool. And they're just pretty much drunk. And his dad's not liking it because he's a snooty guy. And Mozart likes to laugh, make fart jokes, whatever. And what they did, Mozart gets a penalty. He asks his father, and Mozart's acting like a little kid. So what they did is he plays the piano in a certain way of famous composers like Bach. Then when someone asks him Sarietti's there, but he's wearing a mask. No one knows who he is. He says, play Sarietti. He's like, that is a challenge. So he plays Sarietti and makes these faces while he's playing and makes a fart noise after he's done.
Yeah.
And Sarietti says that he's like, oh, mock me. It wasn't Mozart who was laughing. It was God.
Yeah, so then at that point, he just stopped following the path of God that he had been following all this time.
Yeah, and I'm like, dude, if you're going to stop that, go to a brothel, get laid or something.
Yeah, so, he, like we said, he's trying to just sabotage the whole entire thing. Mozart does start putting out operas, but he's not getting paid for it. No one seems to really like them. But Sarietti is going to every single one of the performances because he does start to appreciate Mozart's work.
Yes. And there's a part where Mozart is at a theater, and it's one of his drinking buddies, whoever it was. And this theater is for mostly the common men. And he tells him, hey, if you wrote here and showed here, everyone... Because he's telling he has good work that should be for the common man anyway. And I kind of agree, yeah. And but his wife said, "I want the money up front," but the guy doesn't have it. And Mozart.
Yeah, so him and his wife are fighting because of that. They do have a child. Now, the real life of Mozart, he and his wife were in love deeply. So, this is not a good representation of their relationship.
No.
And they also had 6 children, but only 2 lived past infancy. Um, and after Mozart's death, Sarietti did end up teaching one of the youngest of Mozart's sons on how to play the piano.
Yeah.
But they didn't, of course, they didn't have that in this movie. But I think they were going off the part or the legend. I'm gonna say legend that Mozart was poisoned by him. Mozart was not poisoned by him. That's not how he died. He just got sick. Okay.
Yes, and there was a part where Sarietti's dressed as this, very much wearing this costume
That his dad had worn for the masquerade.
saying he wants him to write the death requiem, wants him to write a requiem of death, pretty much like a funeral requiem, and he pays him every time. And this is Sarietti, but I think in the truth that it was a guy who wants him to write it, so the guy can steal it and claim it as his own.
Yeah. So he's consumed by this, and eventually his wife and son leave because he's just not doing what he's supposed to be doing. Like, because she doesn't want him to do this anymore because she's like, this is consuming you. And they leave. He goes to another show, another opera that he had done, that he was conducting.
It was some the magic flute, whatever it's called.
Yeah, which I think was the vaudeville one that this one guy wanted him to do. And he collapses there. So Sarietti was there, brings him back to his home. The guys from the show show up to give him his payment. And then, Mozart asks him, "Hey, can you stay with me, help me finish this requiem?" Because he didn't tell him, when the guy showed up to give him his half for that show, Sarietti did not tell him, "Hey, this is payment for the show." He just said that the guy in the death mask showed up again. And he said that if you can finish this by tomorrow, I will give you 100 more of their money, whatever their money was. And so he asks Sarietti for his help. And he, it's, I think, dawn. And he's like, "Hey, let's take a break." And Sarie's like, "No, I can go. You can go. I can go for longer." But Mozart definitely looks like that he needs
sleep.
He needs sleep. So he falls asleep, and then Sarietti falls asleep on their child's bed. And his wife comes home, and she, sees Sarietti there. She tries to get him out. And then basically, because she doesn't want to see him again after what happened, how he humiliated her. And then he passed away. Mozart did. In the bed. Shortly after his wife had arrived. And they put him in a reusable coffin. And they weren't allowed to have like a graveside memorial.
In the movie, they were in debt. That's why they couldn't do it.
Yeah. And because he was always asking people for money, for loans and whatnot. Right. And then they buried him in a mass grave. And then it ends with, I think it's time for Sarietti to use the washroom and to eat, I think.
Yes, and he tells you could tell the priest's been there all night.
Mm-hmm.
And he just is at the end of the death requiem, and he just tells this story how he just says, 32 years I'm slowly dying and my music is no longer playing to the mass majority, only his music. Then he
was basically like saying it should have been me.
right, but he's getting wheeled off, and he says, "Don't worry, sir. I speak for all mediocrity. I'm their champion." And he's just going down the hall of the insane asylum saying, "I absolve you.
Yeah.
I absolve." I'm like,
yeah. So, you can definitely tell that the priest had been there all night, because when he shows up, it's daylight.
yeah.
And then when you're watching the movie and it shows him, it goes back to the older version of Sarietti talking to the priest, you can see the background, or the behind him, it's dark. And then it was light again.
Yeah.
So you can definitely tell that it was an all-night thing. And then that's basically how the movie ends.
Yes.
Now, the movie does have good reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. I know we just kind of like glossed over this, but it's
long movie.
It's a long movie, but it's not really anything interesting that we can really talk about with this movie, just because of how it is.
It's just pretty much your typical biopic. We don't have a lot of things we can say about it. It's not a bad film. I give it like what, 6 out of 10.
Yeah, but it has a very, why can I not find it on here? I know it has like a 95%, I think. Hold on, I'm trying to find it here. Also, how they had him die, or how they had him buried in the movie, was not how he was actually buried in real life. They actually had him. They do have a record of him. They have a record of his funeral being paid for, and that he was buried in an unmarked common grave, but he wasn't buried in a mass grave or what they call a pauper's grave. He was not buried in something like that. They do have a gravestone of where they think that his grave is, but they're not 100% sure. So critics gave this movie a 90%, and the audience gave it a 95%. So people really, really liked the movie. So here on Rotten Tomatoes it says Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart is a remarkably talented young Viennese composer who unwittingly finds a fierce rival in the disciplined and determined Antonio. Oh, it's
Sarietti.
No, because there's no T in it. It's Salieri. Salieri. Resenting Mozart for both his hedonistic lifestyle and his undeniable talent, the highly religious Salieri is gradually consumed by his jealousy and becomes obsessed with Mozart's downfall, leading to a devious scheme that has dire consequences for both men. That's how the movie ends, with Mozart dying, which Mozart actually did die. He just didn't die from poisoning or anything like that. They think that he died from some sort of sickness. But I mean, with the records from that time, the 1700s, they don't really know exactly what caused it.
Well, in the movie, he wasn't poisoned. He was just pretty much worked to death.
Yeah, but the guy, he said that he was the one that killed Mozart.
By working him to death, making him drink, so pretty much.
But anyways, that is Amadeus. I mean, we watched the director's cut, which was 3 hours long. I probably wouldn't recommend you watching a 3-hour movie unless you could stand it.
Hell, I watched The Irishman. That movie needs cuts.
This movie, I did find kind of boring. There were some parts that I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
But then there were some parts that I was looking at my phone because I was bored. So I would probably give it like a 7 out of 10.
6 with me.
But then again, I just like classical music type stuff too, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'll give you next week's hint. Next week's hint is engagement. So look forward to that, okay?
All right.
And we will see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.